yeah, I did change, and I'm really glad I changed.
This one's wife. What's fueling the hate campaign? Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. I'm now going to analyse an article which perhaps encapsulate the narcissist's attitude towards criticism. Ordinarily, some of the material that provides the basis for information about this one's wife and Prince Harry, which is then analysed to be seen through the prism of narcissism, comes from journalists, from magazine writers, from YouTubers and blog writers. Occasionally, it might come from somebody of an academic persuasion. And this article, which appears in something called The Conversation, is written by Saibo Chen, who is the assistant professor at the School of Professional Communication at Toronto Metropolitan University. Let's find out what Mr. Chen has to write and how this bears scrutiny vis-à-vis the narcissism of this one's wife. The article commences, earlier this year, the Daily Beast published a story that contained highly derogatory allegations about the Duchess of Sussex, this one's wife, quoting anonymous sources. Pausing there, note the wording that's used, highly derogatory. Certainly, it would be said that the remarks were critical, that much is true, but derogatory also means disrespectful. And one wouldn't suggest that they were disrespectful, nor does this article consider the fact of whether the observations, whilst critical, would be true. The piece was apparently aimed at refuting an earlier story in Us Weekly that praised this one's wife and her management style, and featured people quoted by name. The Daily Beast piece, written by a British-born journalist, was another example in a well-established pattern of relentless negative media framing of this one's wife, particularly by the same UK tabloids that have been sued by her husband, Prince Harry, and often via the use of unnamed sources. This framing is readily identifiable by conducting a simple Google News search of her name. This one's wife, in fact, recently described herself as being one of the most bullied people in the world, which was met with more online bullying. Now let us pause there, because what has been written in these first few paragraphs is actually the behaviour that narcissists engage in. I'm not suggesting that Mr. Chen is one, I don't know enough about him, but it is indicative of the way that people come to the defence of this one's wife, quite possibly prompted by this one's wife, given her reach and her wealth, that shows this aspect of narcissism. You'll notice that it starts with telling us the Daily Beast published a story, and the piece was aimed at refuting an earlier story in Us Weekly. Do you notice what it misses out? Yes, it completely misses out that the chain started with The Hollywood Reporter, explaining how she was viewed as a dictator in high heels and reduced grown men to crying. It was the Us Weekly piece that was the refuting piece, where this one's wife scrambled to find people to say that she was lovely and bought them gifts and provide them with breakfast, etc. And then the Daily Beast, seeing this blatant attempt at trying to criticise the Hollywood Reporter material, followed up on the allegations themselves. The Daily Beast didn't just do it in reaction to Us Weekly praising her. They did it because they were continuing the theme of individuals pointing out what an unpleasant person she is. Also, notice that this article completely misses the point that the Hollywood Reporter came from American journalists generated by American employees of this one's wife. Instead, it tries to funnel it into the narrative that it's the UK tabloids that are the problem, by pointing out that the Daily Beast piece was written by a British-born journalist. Thus, this is what a narcissist will often do. You are being abused by the narcissist. You defend yourself, so there's an argument. What does the narcissist then do? Claim that you're the one that started it. If it were a film, the beginning section where the narcissist is making false accusations against you is cut out. And from the narcissist's perspective, what's actually happening is that they see it as you were the instigator. You were the one that started the problem. And they are merely responding to your abuse of them. They have cut out their abuse of you. Thus, the story, the film, is edited, and this is what this article is doing on behalf of this one's wife. It is editing what actually happened by missing out the fact it was the Hollywood Reporter that commenced with its allegations against this one's wife, and the fact that it was American-based. The article continues by explaining, although tabloid gossip is a feature of any celebrity's life, the long-standing and seemingly orchestrated media campaign, paranoia, against this one's wife, a private citizen, let's be honest here, she isn't a private citizen. She still plays on her royal connection, and she's barely out of the news. A private citizen who left the United Kingdom almost 5 years ago and hasn't spoken publicly about the royal family in years is exceptional. Again, disingenuous. Although she might not have been public, what she has done is sat down and spoken about them in terms of what she said in the Oprah interview. That was 3.5 years ago. What was said in the Harry and This One's Wife docuseries, that was 2 years ago. So to suggest she hasn't spoken publicly about the royal family in years is ridiculous, because we know also that she leaks information which seeks to smear. There have even been allegations of British media outlets attempting to pay people to lie about her. These efforts reveal important information about the intersection of media power, gender and race. As a communications scholar, I wanted to examine how this one's wife has been represented in the media and what other academics have determined in their own research about the coverage of her. The goal is not to assess the media's derogatory claims about her. Rather, it's to shed light on the concealed structural issues underlying everyday news. Since the onset of her relationship with Prince Harry, this one's wife's identity as a feminist, which of course she has constructed but there's no evidence to support that, biracial, something which she's only honed in on as of late. She held herself out as ostensibly Caucasian prior to that, and as an American media celebrity, and also she wasn't really a celebrity. The only thing that's accurate in that sentence is that she's American. This one's wife's identity as a feminist biracial American media celebrity has been under heavy media scrutiny. Early on in their relationship, the Daily Mail ran a highly controversial piece with the headline, "Harry's girl is almost straight out of Compton. Gang-scarred home of her mother revealed, so will he be dropping by for tea?" This piece made no attempt to conceal its racism and was replete with negative stereotypes of black urban poverty, depicting this one's wife as unfit for the privileged life of the monarchy. Nonetheless, the couple's wedding received generally favourable media coverage from a diverse array of outlets. This disparity prompted scholars to inquire into the symbolic meanings of the royal wedding. In an essay that garnered significant media attention, historian Hannah Yellin and sociologist Laura Clancy argued that the monarchy co-opted this one's wife's feminist rhetoric. They wrote, "A celebrity post-feminist such as this one's wife is of great value to a British monarchy keen to set themselves apart from these other forms of patriarchy and to mask, or at least deflect attention from, their own intensely problematic relationship with issues of race, gender, class and religion." Now, pausing there, it is certainly accurate to suggest that the royal family could make good use of the fact that a commoner who is from another country, who is a divorcee and was biracial, was marrying into the royal family. However, the fact is to suggest that she is a celebrity feminist is stretching it. Yes, she'd been in suits, but most people didn't know that. And to suggest that she's a feminist Well, she keeps saying that she is, but there are many instances which demonstrate that she's not, but there's one in particular which repeatedly demonstrates that the feminism that she so repeatedly bangs on about is simply an artifice made use of by her narcissism, which is she's only ever got anywhere off the backs of men. The article continues, but when the Sunday Times published a story based upon Yellen and Clancy's essay, it chose an eye-catching yet problematically inaccurate title. Academics accuse this one's wife of dropping feminism like a hot potato. As this story was reproduced by other publications, Yellen and Clancy found themselves targeted with sustained online hostility. Their criticism of proliferating misogyny was co-opted into an increasingly negative media coverage of this one's wife. This twist was a telling revelation of how attacks on this one's wife are closely associated with mounting public tension around feminism and visible feminists. Again, this academic keeps planting the flag in the ground of her feminism, but she's anything but. It also fails to recognise this. The repeated criticism of this one's wife, which he describes as attacks, isn't based upon her feminism, isn't based upon visible feminists, it's based upon her behaviour as a narcissist. This is a recurring theme with those that seek to defend this one's wife, either of their own volition or at her instigation. The Sugars repeatedly accuse anybody who criticises this one's wife of being a racist, and you don't know her. They completely overlook the fact that there is massive amounts of coverage of her which allows people to form an opinion on her behaviour, and also the fact that it's based upon the way that she behaves. It's nothing to do with her skin colour. Furthermore, it misses the point that when it comes to the issue of race, this one's wife has only made an issue of race in the last few years. Hitherto, she never did. She always held herself out as being Caucasian. And indeed, we have seen, and I have mentioned in various parts passing, the chameleon that she is as a narcissist, she plays to the group that she's with regard to how she looks, looking whiter on some occasions and browner on other occasions, dependent on who the audience is. That is a symptom of her narcissism as she seeks to mirror the audience. The problem with this article is that it is trying to suggest that this one's wife is attacked because she's a feminism, and it's got nothing to do with that. It's got everything to do with the way that she behaves. However, it then moves on to another aspect. Besides the gender perspective, racial identity is also central to media discourses surrounding this one's wife, whose marriage to Prince Harry was depicted by some media commentators as a marked progress in British race relations. This widely held opinion, however, is disputed by many scholars. For example, Kehinde Andrews, the first Black Studies professor in the United Kingdom, who led the establishment of the first Black Studies programme in Europe at Birmingham City University, considered this one's wife's inclusion into the royal family a cosmetic change in representation. He adds that framing her entry into the family as a sign of progress is the perfect example of a post-racial delusion that demonstrates how poorly the nation understands racism and the power of the desire to live in a fantasy of progress rather than address continuing issues. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex's high-profile departure from the royal family in 2020 occurred in the broader context of Brexit, and it was naturally labelled as #Megxit in online discussions. This play on words allowed racist ideologies to persist under the guise of humour. As media scholar Kendra Marston noted, staged fantasies of this one's wife's expulsion from the royal family, and indeed from Britain, neatly encapsulated in the Twitter #Megxit, seek to preserve a fantasy of the British monarchy as an exclusive symbol of national heritage that is conservative, patriarchal, white, and importantly, legitimate. The article then moves on to tell us media narratives about this one's wife should also be understood against the backdrop of British regulatory environments and market mechanisms. First, journalists in the United Kingdom navigate a maze of statutes and legal precedents. As such, their focus can be drawn to what is legally possible, and there is more legal leeway for reporting on celebrities and members of the royal family than there is for reporting on private people. There's also this. People are more interested in hearing about people they are aware of, namely celebrities and members of the royal family, rather than private people who they think, who's that? Ethical considerations appear in professional codes of conduct. McNay's Essential Law for Journalists, a term elaborating what may get journalists into legal trouble, is the British Journalist's Bible. Second, and unlike the UK's statutorily regulated broadcast sector, oversight of the print sector primarily rests with the industry-established Independent Press Standards Organisation. The extent to which this self-regulatory arrangement curbs newspaper excesses is a matter of debate. Market pressures weigh on British media ethics, but there is a difference in coverage between the more sober quality press, like The Guardian, and sensationalistic tabloids like the Daily Mail and The Sun, which lean towards hyper-competitive market-orientated journalism. Media scholar James Curran has noted that quality news historically attracts high-end advertisers seeking high-end niche audiences. Tabloids have sought larger, mass audiences and the advertisers targeting them. Sensationalism and outrage deliver large readerships, as does gossip, which helps audiences feel in the know about exclusive high-status groups. Gossip does appear in the quality press, though tabloids excel at providing it. In 2012, the UK's Leveson inquiry into media ethics resulted in a series of recommendations on how to regulate British newspapers in the wake of phone hacking scandals. Those recommendations have largely been ignored. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said recently he would not revive the long-awaited second part of the inquiry, to the dismay of media regulation advocates and many parliamentarians. Finally, the article tells us the media's portrayal of This One's Wife reveals the societal tensions underlying daily news, particularly concerning race and gender. It also underscores the complexity of news ethics, particularly in the United Kingdom, which are exacerbated by the supposed self-regulation of some media outlets. Market pressures and the desire for clicks often result in sensationalist celebrity coverage that can often be factually problematic, or, in This One's Wife's case, even incendiary at times. Given the media's impact on public perception and how it can incite online abuse, of the type This One's Wife is frequently subjected to, it seems the media should rethink how it reports on public figures and private citizens alike. Accordingly, that is the article that is written by Sibo Chen. And essentially, what it's saying is this. The question posed, what's fueling the media's enduring hate campaign against This One's Wife? And it suggests that it is 1, gender-based, because she's a feminist, 2, racial-based, because she's biracial, and thirdly, it is the pursuit of clicks and the fact that it's market-oriented journalism. Ultimately, there is accuracy with regard to the suggestion that much of the material that is written about This One's Wife is designed, of course, to engage with an audience and get them to click, to read, and so that advertising space can be sold. I've explained previously that there is so much material about This One's Wife, which is why I've created so many videos about her, because there's so many things that you can pick up on to explain narcissism, but it's being generated from 2 sources. This One's Wife herself, with her PR puff pieces and the necessity of coverage, because that helps her pursue the prime aims, and secondly, because the media knows that people are interested in her, not because they necessarily like her, and therefore they keep commenting about her, mentioning things, reporting on matters which otherwise, for anybody else, wouldn't really be of much interest, because they know that people will read it and watch it. But to try and portray this as the media doing it because they are sexist, misogynistic, and racist is ultimately disingenuous. The reason why there is this repeated coverage simply comes down to the fact that people are interested in what she is doing because she has a group of supporters, and there is a much larger group of people who do not like the way that she has behaved, want to know what she's doing, and in effect want to watch her crash and burn. They want to see the downward spiral. And therefore, As I've explained before, the media is well aware of this, and it doesn't want to slaughter the cash cow by coming out with some great big expose of her, but rather it continues to report on what she's doing as there is the slow decline, which means that they're able to milk this for all it's worth. It isn't about racism. It isn't about misogyny. And to suggest there is a hate campaign is again disingenuous. To suggest that there's been this cabal of individuals who've got together and said, hey, let's all keep on hating against this one's wife. It's not the case. You'll have noticed from time to time that the Daily Mail reports favourably about, for instance, something that she might be wearing. They do this full in the knowledge that it will get under the skin of readers who ordinarily dislike her and think, Daily Mail, what are you doing? What are you playing at? The media have no personal interest in doing down this one's wife. They haven't. She's not that important. The media recognise that there are millions of people who are interested in knowing what she's doing, primarily because they don't like her, and that's why the media reports on her. They don't hate her. If she were to disappear tomorrow, that would be it. They would find somebody else to write about, and in order to engage viewers with and readers with. It isn't driven by any personal animosity against this one's wife. There isn't a hate campaign. It is simply the media recognising that because there are millions of people that are interested in her, they can keep writing and talking about her, broadcasting about her, and they will continue to gain engagement. And therefore, that is what is driving them to keep reporting on her, because there's plenty of people who want to know about her. As I've explained before, if you wanted to stop her, stop reading, stop viewing, stop talking about her, and then the media would realise people aren't interested in her anymore, and they would stop reporting on her. They wouldn't keep it going because they think, oh, well, we need to do her down because we hate her. They are businesses. And believe me, the proprietors of those businesses, when they would realise that they were continuing to write about somebody which wasn't gaining any response from the readership, the editors would either be fired or would be soon told, change, stop doing that, it's pointless. Because they are businesses in the business of making money. That is what drives the behaviour. Nothing to do with misogyny, nothing to do with racism, nothing to do with a hate campaign. What are your thoughts on this academic article? Do you think perhaps that it has been generated by the publicity team at this one's wife to maintain her as the victim of an enduring hate campaign? To continue to demonstrate that the UK media are the problem and it's all about race and misogyny, and that she has sought an academic to come out with this, which could then be put out there to perpetuate this image of victimhood? Do you think that it's just a supporter who has looked at this and has got the wrong end of the stick? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.